But it's pretty satisfying to watch the host squirm after being challenged and called out for her backhandedness in the most polite ways possible. Having all this political virtue signaling shoved down our throats, it's nice to see it be dismantled calmly. And while the co-host did try to do some damage control in the second segment of their interview, it was far too late. But the best part of all is that Matthew never gets visibly angry.
You gave our very own Joy Behar a foot massage. Let's take a, we have a clip.
And the only time he raises his voice is when he gets excited. It's a far cry from someone like Joe Rogan, who has a very explosive method of confronting people, but is equally entertaining to watch. Now Rogan is always on the other side of the couch, interviewing big-name celebrities, professionals, and interesting personalities. As a result, he often shuts down his fair share of rude people. But it was during the pandemic, when CNN and the mainstream media would do everything they could to destroy Joe Rogan and cancel him for good, all because of his views on the coronavirus. CNN in particular would go directly after Joe Rogan's throat.
Money off of it. Disinformation, I should say. Joe Rogan has been at the center of controversy for comments that he's made about the pandemic and vaccines.
Calling him a crazy man, someone not to be taken seriously, and someone who should have his entire show cancelled. So when people saw that CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, would appear on the podcast, everybody knew sparks were going to fly. Especially after CNN's wild claims that Rogan used horse dewormer as a cure for COVID. But instead, we got a civil discussion between two men who cared about an issue affecting many people. But it was a very satisfying watch for many to see Joe Rogan completely dismantle CNN once and for all. It all began with a discussion about coronavirus, and Joe Rogan's controversial takes on it. And while they obviously differed on opinions, and Rogan's refusal to get the vaccine, however things would take a turn when Rogan brought up the Guardian's report on a study that suggested that healthy boys were more likely to be diagnosed with myocarditis, a disease that causes one's heart to inflame, after taking a certain medicine, more than they were to be hospitalized from COVID itself. So Gupta started to stumble over his words, and argued that he didn't know if the boys needed to be hospitalized.
Yeah, I don't know that they ended up needing to be hospitalized.
But Rogan quickly pointed out that he was contradicting the information directly in front of him.
But it says it right there. 86% of the boys affected by vaccine-related myocarditis required some hospital care.
Yeah.
Rogan then used the article to go into his belief that even if you get vaccinated, you can still spread the disease and get infected.
You can spread it when you're vaccinated. Sure. In fact, this most recent outbreak that we had at the Comedy Store was spread by a vaccinated person.
The doctor focused more on the get infected part of his statement, and continued to argue that vaccinated people are far less likely to get infected.
According to this new data that's coming out, 8 times less likely to get infected if you have been vaccinated.
While the back and forth is interesting, Rogan didn't take long to get to what many of his listeners were really curious to hear about, the confrontation over CNN's wild claims. Rogan has never been afraid to ask his guests questions that may make them feel uncomfortable, and the same was clearly true for Dr. Sanjay Gupta. The comedian asks him point blank how he feels about the network he works for, lying about the medication Rogan's doctor had prescribed to him.
I'm missing.
Do you think that's a problem, that your news network lies?
Gupta then suddenly looks nervous throughout the entire segment, and tries to move past the issue without really addressing it. Still, Rogan brings him back, demanding to know his thoughts.
Can I just come back to the one I want to talk about? Two things on the ledger.
You have, before we get to that, does it bother you that the news network you work for out and out lied? Just outright lied?
The doctor doesn't have a good explanation for what happened, and simply repeats that the network shouldn't have said that.
They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
He even tries to defend CNN despite how bad it made Rogan look, not just through the report, but their version of his video announcing he had COVID, which the podcast host revealed has a yellow filter on to try and make him look worse.
Turns out I got COVID.
Look, they put a yellow filter on me
too.
too.
The kitchen sink out of all kinds of meds. Monoclonal,
you see the original video versus that? I look like shit there.
Z-Pack.
Do you know that?
I think you look good.
Pause. It's enough.
Prednisone.
That's enough, Jim.
I don't think Aaron had.
Gupta then tries to argue that they can have a nuanced discussion about CNN's lying a few more times during the interview.
See, here's the thing. You can have nuanced discussions about this.
Pointing out that the FDA has been spreading false information about Rogan's apparent horse dewormer, but the comedian wasn't having any of it. All Gupta could really say about the incident after it was that it really shouldn't have happened. While a few of Rogan's podcast episodes have led to some harsh exchanges, people can never say he doesn't respect his interviewees